Hello, Patriots. Well, today I thought we'd do sort of a mulligan stew of the really bad week the Democrats have had. And we're going to take a look at several different issues as we go. Let's start with the special election held in Tennessee for the congressional seat of retiring Tennessee Congressman Mark Green. The Democrats threw millions of dollars from all over the country and the DNC into this race. And their candidate, the so-called AOC of Tennessee, failed miserably. Now, this tells you the Democrats' desperation. They bring in AOC to campaign in Tennessee? Are you kidding me? And they bring Al Gore, who couldn't find Tennessee on a map, who claims to have been a great Tennessean. Of course, he was senator from Tennessee. And they still lost by 10 points in a special election with a very light voter turnout. Not a good sign for the Democrats, but the media have been pounding the drum saying this really looks bad for the GOP in the midterms because Trump won that district by 22 points. We'll see, but that seat's safe, and Matt Van Epps has been sworn in and will serve honorably in the Congress. Well, how about the seditious six? They're having a very bad week as well. They ran out and did this video that I'm sure you've all seen, where they all said the same thing, that military, you can disobey an unlawful order. But none of them could identify a single unlawful order that military personnel should disobey. I don't understand the purpose of their video other than to try to sow seeds of mutiny, sedition, treason among our troops. Well, one of the seditious six in particular is in hot water, and that's Mark Kelly. Kelly is a retired naval officer, retired, which means he's still subject to the military code of justice. And as such, he is subject to being recalled to active duty for the purpose of court-martial, which may indeed happen. And so what's Kelly done? He has doubled down. He's gone out and screeched all over the place, well, they're not going to intimidate me. I will not be intimidated. Well, Mark, you got a problem, pal. We all know, well, I don't, maybe you don't, but the very first week of basic training, troops are taught that if an order and the law come into conflict, the law always wins. They don't need to be told by these people they can disobey an unlawful order. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of problems crop up for these people as the FBI investigates and as the process against Mark Kelly continues. Well, and one of the things that may have been overlooked during all the uproar over the blowing up of a drug boat in the Caribbean, and we're going to get to that, was the United States Supreme Court ruling on Texas redistricting. The Democrats, what the sound that you heard that sounded like an explosion were the Democrats' heads in D.C. and otherwise throughout Texas when the Supreme Court in a 6-3 vote upheld the redistricting and said that no, the redistricting did not violate the principle of fairness in particularly division along racial lines. Now, the best news that comes out of this is that Jasmine Crockett, little Jasmine, has been districted or redistricted out of her congressional seat. So if she runs again, she's going to have to run in a different district. Of course, she's making noise about running for Senate. But my advice to Jasmine would be to pay your condo association assessments before you get your condo repoed. So the Supreme Court has upheld that. Now, the even better news is Florida is moving ahead with redistricting as well. Now it's 20, I think it's 20-8 in Florida, but any seats that could be picked up through the redistricting process would certainly be a plus. California, as you know, redistricted 5 Republicans out of office, and that was done to counterbalance Texas. So Florida is going to give the Republicans a net plus in the redistricting battle. Well, the big news of the week, I guess, is all this falterall about the blowing up of a boat full of cocaine in the Caribbean on September the 2nd. What the Democrats have run around saying for weeks now is that it was a war crime, that Secretary Hegseth, I used to work with a guy named Hedgepeth. Secretary Hegseth gave an order to kill them all. Well, it turns out that wasn't true. There was no kill them all order, and the secretary authorized Admiral Bradley to make the decisions necessary to carry out the mission, which was to destroy the drug boat.
Lawmakers from both parties say Admiral Bradley told them Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did not give an order at the mission's outset to kill everyone on the boat.
Now, one of the things that bothers me is how these Democrats are still holding on to this fallacy. We had this Connecticut congressperson come out and describe the situation this way.
Any American who sees the video that I saw will see the United States military attacking shipwrecked sailors.
But then Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas described the situation much differently.
What exactly did you see in terms of the video of the second strike? Were there survivors?
I saw 2 survivors trying to flip a boat loaded with drugs down for the United States, back over so they could stay in the fight. And potentially, given all the context we heard, of other narco-terrorist boats in the area coming to their aid to recover their cargo and recover those narco-terrorists. And just like you would blow up a boat off of the Somali coast or the Yemeni coast, and you'd come back and strike it again if it still had terrorists and it still had explosives or missiles, Admiral Bradley and Secretary Hegseth did exactly what we would expect them to do.
Did military JAG say that the second and follow-on strikes were all lawful?
Yes, look, this is not like a firefight in some cave in Afghanistan that had 3 people. This was witnessed by literally hundreds of uniformed and civilian personnel at the Pentagon, at Fort Bragg, at other installations. Dozens of them were lawyers. Everybody was watching. Everybody had seen the intelligence and the legal basis leading up to these strikes. Everyone was present during it, and that continues to be the case. There's been no change in the guidance or the order that the Secretary has given to our troopers. And in subsequent strikes, there is an example where survivors actually were shipwrecked and distressed and not trying to continue on their mission. And they were treated, as they should be, as non-combatants.
You see, what we've got is a false report from the Washington Post based on an anonymous source that Hegseth had given this order when in fact it didn't happen. And Admiral Bradley confirmed that it did not happen, that there was no kill them all order. Admiral Bradley also stood behind his decision. And I warned y'all that this was going to fall apart in a prior video, didn't I? And I told you that Bradley had a JAG officer standing right beside him when he made the decision for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strikes. You see, as it turns out, the 2 survivors, and no, they weren't shipwrecked sailors. The 2 survivors were still in the fight. Listen to how Martha Raddatz describes it. And you know she is no friend of the president's or of the Republicans.
source familiar with the incident. The two survivors climbed back onto the boat after the initial strike. They were believed to be potentially in communication with others and salvaging some of the drugs. Because of that, it was determined they were still in the fight and valid targets. A JAG officer was also giving legal advice.
Okay, so we've got these guys trying to right the ship, trying to salvage the drugs, and perhaps trying to communicate with other narco-terrorists in the area to try to retrieve the drugs and then move them on to the United States. So they're still in the fight. Even Martha had to admit that. And if they're still in the fight, then they're subject to the wrath of the military, which they suffered. Now, for the life of me, how these Democrats can believe that taking the side of narco-terrorists is the right thing to do. But then again, remember the Maryland father? Yeah. And having cocktails with him and outside of his prison, and all of the nonsense that they raised over that, and the ICE protests. They're on the wrong side of every issue, it seems to me. And I believe they're certainly on the wrong side of this one. And then finally, we've got this moron from Michigan who can barely speak English and apparently forgot how to comb his hair, filing articles on impeachment. Watch this.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is uniquely unqualified for his role. Every day, it becomes clearer that he is engaging in unlawful, illegal activity. That is why today I am preparing 2 articles of impeachment against Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth.
Where does he think this is going to go? Well, this is just a stunt. This is political theater, and it just takes up time, burns energy, and nobody gives a damn what this guy thinks. Nobody. I can't believe that this is a representative in our Congress. But then again, we've got AOC, and we've got Crockett, and we've got Jayapal and Presley, and all these other crazy lunatics who are somehow getting elected to Congress. People, we need to wake up, because we get what we vote for in Congress, and I see a dangerous trend coming. So that's it. That's the mulligan stew of bad things that happened to the Democrats this week. Well, what are your thoughts? Please share them with us in the comments.